certainly an honor and privilege to be here. I apologize for being late. I broke a few laws rushing back from Toronto. So hopefully there's no disbarment here me for that issue. But when I saw the parking lot, I knew I was in trouble. I knew there wasn't going to be a back door I could sneak in and protect it. So I just first like to acknowledge the Creator for allowing us all to be here this evening. Our elders and our youth. There's been a lot of good things shared this evening. And as I was sitting there and listening to the different speakers, I changed what I was going to share, which often happens. I'm reminded, as we were talking about water, our people view it in the simplistics of terms. I'm reminded of a time when I was sitting with my grandmother, and our elders, they're very knowledgeable people, but they choose the time when they're going to share with you. It's not that easy just to say, will you share? And sometimes my experience is it's always at the times you least expect. So I came home for a visit to sit with my grandmother. I was in my third year of law school, and we were sitting around the table having a cup of tea. And just out of the blue, she said, I can remember a time when your grandfather and I could go to the streams, take a bucket of water, and drink that water picked from the stream. And that's something that resonated and stayed with me in the simplistic of terms. For our people, for all of us, water is life. You don't need scientists or billion-dollar studies to tell you that. It's that simple. Without it, we're lost. And we're being told something. The water is speaking to us. The question is, are we listening? It's not healthy. We hear different things about declining water levels. We hear different things about pollutants. But it's going to take a change fundamentally in each and every one of us. Because we like the convenience of turning on that tap. We like the convenience of going to the light switch and flipping on the light. But we must strive to be better and do more. I had the opportunity 3 years ago to go to New Zealand with the late Chief of Akamanzi. And we were invited by the Maori on the South Island at night time. And they wanted to sit with us because they were interested in some of the work that we were doing. And they wanted to know how we could form an alliance to work together. And it's interesting during the course of our discussions over the week where we ended up. And it's just through the natural flow of the discussion. When our focus turned to water. There are many places there where they can still drink that water from the source. But they're very concerned that those days no longer be. In my travels throughout different communities across this country, that is probably the most paramount issue for our people. And Maud said it best. It's fundamentally a human right. We come at it, I wouldn't say from a different perspective, but we have our own perspective on it. And I'm reminded of our relationship, not only with the Crown or governments, but with each and every one of you in this room. One of my elders said it best, we're all treaty people. Many, many years ago, our people were faced with a tremendous pressure. With the influx of settlers into this area, they realized there was going to be change, and they had to prepare for that change. And so they entered into those treaties with a very simple understanding. One, that we would continue to share this territory with those settlers who came in. Many of those settlers, your ancestors. Very simple to share. But what was most fundamental to our people was to maintain and protect that fundamental relationship to the land and the waters. Because who we are as a people is very much linked, deeply linked to that relationship. Our language, our culture, our ceremonies, our very identity. So when I see the struggles that we are enduring with our water now, I can't help but think that's a piece of us that is dying with it because of that relationship. And it's that profound. But we need to do more. It's something inherent in each and every one of us. We have to stand and be that difference. Complacency and ignorance are not an excuse anymore, and it's not acceptable. I'm very proud to see the efforts of SOS to make a stand. We need to see more of that. The pressures we are going to face in the years ahead with this high-level repository are profound. I was sitting with some of our elders, and I asked them a very simple question. Can you tell me what it means to think beyond 7 generations? Because that's how our people think, that's how we plan, that's how we interact, that's how we relate. They couldn't answer it. And that worries me. As a leader of my people, I carry that responsibility. Our people carry that responsibility to protect that relationship. And we don't do it just for ourselves. We do it for those generations yet to come. We have to be their voice. In 50, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, they're going to say, what did that generation do? What efforts? What efforts or steps did they take to protect what is most vital to each and every one of us? I don't know about you, but when I go home and I look in the mirror, I want to know that I did my best to make that stand. We are fortunate that the law has developed in certain areas that can become a real tool for us to wield if we use it right. Under Section 35, which is the highest law on the land, under the Canadian Constitution, the highest law on the land, it guarantees that our rights and interests as a people will be protected. And for many years we've had to fight and struggle to breathe life into those provisions. But one of the highest forms of accommodation is consent. Especially where those rights and interests stand to be greatly impacted. And I can think of no more greater impact than impacting on our water. It's what sustains us. It sustains our fishery. It sustains who we are as a people. We've tried to push that issue of consent. And we're told we won't be out in front of the law. We're not prepared to go there. harder. You got to look at the international standards that have been set in place for issues like this deep geological repository for high-level waste. The UN Declaration on Rights of Indigenous People makes it very clear. It requires my people's free, prior, informed consent. Without it, it cannot happen. Yet Canada, Mr. Harper says, that's only an aspirational document. Something that many of you may not know. That declaration was a culmination of many, many years of hard work and efforts from a lot of good people throughout the world. And when it came time, and ironically, Canada was a key player at the time in putting that declaration together. But when it came time to ratify that document, Harper refused to sign, as did the US, as did New Zealand, as did Australia. And over the course of time, with much effort and support, with groups like the Council of Canadians, minds started to change, and that document was eventually signed by Canada. But my question is, and it should be the question for all of us, when are they going to implement it? If this is not the issue to implement on, when is it going to happen? So we come at it from the perspective that we must protect that relationship, not only for ourselves, but those generations to come. Because that's what my ancestors did. That's what they fought so hard to protect. And that's the responsibility we all carry as treaty people. So as we continue to progress through this challenge we have, I encourage each and every one of you to speak out. Be heard. Don't be quiet. Don't be silent. Don't be complacent. Make that stand. Because without that water, it's not only my people that are going to control, it's each and every one of us. So, again, I'd like to thank Cheryl and SOS and all the speakers here today for sharing, and for each and every one of you who've come out here to be part of this. So,